if we can reduce those negative exposures that your pets have with each other by keeping visits short and starting with as much space between them as possible, then we are more likely to have success in the long run, and that's what we're after. Welcome to episode 19 of the Pawdoption Guide podcast. I'm your host, Bethany Muir, and this is your one-stop shop for the knowledge and advice you need to adopt and integrate the rescue dog of your dreams. It's been a little while since I've been on here, longer than usual, because last week I took a little bit of a hiatus to, just give myself some time to come down after the launch of my Pawdoption Guide membership experience. And, I spent over a year preparing to launch and working my butt off for it. So I thought I deserved a little bit of a rest, and quite frankly, I needed it. So thanks for bearing with me in that little break that I had. But now, I want to get back into it, and I'm excited to serve you guys some more. So I want to talk about another common fear for dog adopters these days, and that is introducing your new dog to your current pet. There is good reason for this, as I've definitely seen lots of turmoil in multi-pet households over my time in the vet clinic, these past 9 years. There's certainly lots of households where an additional pet has not made the household better off. And so, usually someone suffers, whether it's maybe the new dog that doesn't fit in so well because of the dynamic that's currently there, or, maybe it's the cat, let's just say the cat that doesn't appreciate having a dog now. And, there are multiple reasons why that is, right? Some pets are not so social, and that's either because they haven't had to be, or they just were never taught how to be. So meeting another animal in their home, in some place that they recognize as a safe space, can really come as a big surprise for them. And some pets will change their behavior with that continued presence of another animal. And that's kind of natural, right? Like as human beings, we see that. If we work with a certain person, we might change our behaviors based on who we're working with or our friends. And so, it's natural, but sometimes there can be bad behaviors that result out of having a new pet in the household. So, those are certainly reasons to worry about how that introduction is going to go down. And actually, some people don't worry at all about it. And then find out as they're actually, doing the introduction that they should have. And that might have been me. I think when I got my dog Geller, he was the first dog I introduced to my cat Hudson, I wasn't that worried, and actually that went great. But then the second time around when I introduced our other dog, I again wasn't that worried because of how well it had gone the first time. But, it can be different, right? Based on how the dog's going to react. So I have a pretty laid back cat, so he's pretty cool. But turns out, the Dalmatian I got that was said to be good with cats didn't have as much exposure as we had expected, and actually, wanted to pounce on Hudson and chase him right away. And so there was work to be done there. So I probably should have worried a little bit more about that second meeting than I did. But because I used some quality introduction tools, we didn't really have long-term concerns. So not to say it didn't take some time. And of course, another reason to be worried about the introduction going well is that some pairings are not meant to be and aren't something that can can continue long term for, your pet's safety or their quality of life. So sometimes you have to make hard decisions, even though you might want to bring in a new pet, that might not be able to happen. Or, maybe you are keeping your dog, but you have to get rid of your cat. Obviously I think that's just the worst case scenario, but it does occur. I have seen that. So today, we're just going to focus specifically on introducing dogs to cats. There are similarities between this approach and introducing a dog to another dog, but there are also big differences. So we'll just talk about dogs and cats for now. So first off, when introducing a new pet to your household, that resident pet, so the one that currently lives in your house and resides there, their quality of life should be the top priority. So there will be some animals that can't coexist, and you should be prepared for the fact that you might have to return your new pet if you don't see sufficient progress when you're integrating or introducing your pets into your household. So, obviously, as I was saying before, that's worst case scenario that your pets don't get along. But when you bring in a new pet, it should only be to benefit the whole household, and that includes your current pets. So if there is going to be some really negative side effects for your residing pet or the resident pet, then, that's really not fair to them, and you should really have their best interest at heart. So, always keep that in mind. So let's delve into the 3 tips I've got for you on creating better introductions between dogs and cats. Tip number 1 is having a conducive environment. So right from the get-go, you're going to need to make sure that your environment is conducive to adding another pet. So cats really need to have a refuge where all of their resources are available to them, but not to the dog. So that area should have their food, their water, their bed, scratching posts, litter box, toys. And if you live in an apartment and you have tight quarters, that will make it harder to allow sufficient space for your pets while you're introducing them. So make sure you've considered that need for separate space that acts as your cat's refuge before you get a new pet. Now, once you have that set up, remember that cats don't like to eat where they poop. So you're going to want to make sure that the food in the litter box are not right beside each other. That's not fair to your pet. You see how you like eating next to your toilet. Then you'll need to decide how you're going to go about reducing your new pet's access in the house. So a good rule of thumb is that the resident pet, the pet that you already have, so likely your cat in this scenario, should continue to have free reign of the house, and the new pet should be given that restricted access to start. Because truthfully, they don't know any better. That new pet hasn't been in your environment before. So if you keep them to a certain area, they don't know more than that. So it's quite fair to do that. Whereas your current pet is used to having the whole house. And if you make them just take a small little area or only have a room where they used to have the whole house, they're going to notice, and that could create a negative association with the new pet that came in, or just make them generally less happy. And that's not going to be a place you want that pet in while you're doing an introduction. So, you can use doors, baby gates, or dividers to kind of accomplish this restricted access. Baby gates will allow for pets to come up to that threshold, and then they can still see through it for the most part without having to cross the threshold or be pursued by the animal on the other side. So especially great for cats who might be curious and want to kind of come check out that dog, but then don't have to have the dog fully see them right face to face. They have a bit of a barrier, and then also can easily get away if they're deciding that they're not comfortable. Then you'll want to ensure that your cat who most often will require more protection of the two, has some escape routes. So if there's any intentional or unintentional meetings that occur, we want your cat to have free roam to be able to escape. So they should have, like elevated spaces, like cat trees are really great, or you can find little huts. So maybe the hut's up on a little table, or shelves that cats can go on, taller furniture, possibly even a cat door for access to their refuge or to their room that has all their resources. Or I used a door jamb with my cat when we had him have his refuge be the basement. We had a door jamb, so only he could come and go from the basement without the dogs being able to go down there. And so that's a great tool to be able to use to, again, not have to close everything right up with doors, but be able to allow a certain amount of access. So tip number 2 is to take it slow. I cringe every time I hear someone say, "Oh, yeah, we just let them sort it out themselves and it was fine." Sure. Sometimes you do get lucky. I've seen it happen, and I got lucky. My cat went nose to nose with my dog Geller on our meet and greet, and it was just great. They both completely ignored each other after that, and it was lovely. I mean, completely ignored each other in that day. There, of course, were other moments that occurred, but in general, it was very easy with Geller and Hudson. So sometimes it can be no big deal, and both pets are really respectful, and maybe the cat stands its ground and hisses or swats at the dog, and the dog learns its lesson right away that cat is a dangerous thing, don't toil with it. But if you just let them sort it out, and there is a really negative interaction that occurs instead of, something pretty laid back and easy, then one of your pets could be seriously injured, like maimed, or be traumatized by the meeting, which can make it much harder to come back from. So we're really, when we talk about taking it slow, just trying to avoid having something incredibly catastrophic or negative occur, so that we don't have to work back from that experience, because certainly that will be on your cat or your dog's mind if something went down, right? So even if say the cat doesn't get hurt or anything, but the dog clamors at the cat as it's trying to chase the cat and has an opportunity to really swipe at the cat or lunge and run after it, just with that ability that it had to do a little bit of a chase, it just, reinforced that behavior for itself. It just got that opportunity to be like, oh, yes, I'm going to chase it. And so it just learned a little something about the dynamic between the two. Whereas if we have a much more controlled dynamic, then we're less likely to have to unlearn those things. So really, the best rule of thumb is to make that introduction gradual. So not just to put two pets in a room together and expect that things will turn out fine, or just to go, okay, well, we introduced them slowly and they seemed fine, and then we just left for work the next day and we came home and the house is a disaster. But seems like they did fine. That's not fair to your pets, right? So we really want that good foundation that we can build on, and not a catastrophic event, and not, expecting them to just fend for themselves, because that creates a lot of stress for your pets. If we can reduce those negative exposures that your pets have with each other by, keeping visits short and starting with as much space between them as possible, then we are more likely to have success in the long run. And that's what we're after. And tip number 3 is to provide controlled interactions. So only you're allowing your dog and cat to spend time together when you're able to guide those interactions and to supervise them. And when I say supervise, I don't just mean like sitting there watching what's happening and then reacting. I mean actively being ready to intercede, having the right set up so that you're likely going to have success, or you're not creating anxiety for either of your pets. So what does that look like? Well, with my cat Hudson and my dog Rory, when they initially met, we saw that Rory had this instinct to chase Hudson. And again, when they met, Hudson was allowed to roam freely and had access to run away to the basement, and Rory was on leash. And so, we saw that instinct. So then we knew, okay, so they're going to be definitely separate for Hudson's safety until we see that they can coexist calmly. And then Rory would always be on leash if Hudson was out roaming, and she was only allowed access to, the main floor, not to the upstairs or not to the basement. And so then every, twice a day or once a day at the start, we would have them have like a supervised visit where TJ would kind of be available to Hudson, and then I would have Rory on a leash, and we started out with like a lot of space. So we were basically just entering the room where Hudson was with Rory, and we were staying further apart. And then he's a pretty confident cat, so he actually did come closer and would approach, but we just let him guide that. But we just let him decide that. And then at that point, if Rory was lunging toward Hudson at all, then we just broke it off and we'd have to start again another day. If she was calm, then, he could kind of hang out and we would just praise her with, pets and attention. And, TJ would be with Hudson and he could praise Hudson for being calm in her presence. And then, we slowly each day tried to encourage just a little less distance and see how interactions went. And based on that, what we would do for the following day. So took it really gradual, 1 visit, 2 visits a day that are fully controlled. And, if the dog is lunging or highly alert, that's kind of the end of the meeting. But rewarding any of that positive, calm behavior with treats or with praise. We avoided using treats just because Rory was highly excitable with treats. So we thought she didn't need to be more aroused in these scenarios. So, we did those for quite some time. And, we would occasionally have a setback where Rory would lunge versus being calm. And then, it took some time for Hudson to come around the next time or be interested or content around her. But I think it was about 3 months' time before we saw that they could coexist happily in the household. And luckily, Rory was being created during the day while we were away anyways, because she was a younger dog and she needed to learn her boundaries in our household. So that helped a lot with allowing Hudson to have that free roam, but also allow a little bit of exposure for them. It was 3 long months though. Like I did fear for Hudson's safety at times when interactions didn't go so well. I worried that we might not ever get to that place that Rory, our Dalmatian, would be calm enough to coexist with him in the house. And of course, I never wanted to bring a pet into the household and have that ruin the dynamic or upset one of my current pets so that their quality of life was no longer as good. So we seriously considered whether we'd have to return Rory. But right around that time, we kind of had a breakthrough. Rory was on leash and Hudson was roaming. So we kind of graduated to this place where, Rory was on leash and Hudson could be roaming for longer periods instead of these just short, quick visits. and we were cuddling on the couch with the two dogs, and Hudson, jumped up and came onto the couch, and Rory kind of perked her ears a little, watched what he was doing, but settled right in, and Hudson even came right over and cuddled with Rory. And so again, that's not going to be everyone's cat. My cat is maybe almost more dog-like, but he's quite confident cat, but it did come around, and after that, things were great. And, our cat rules the roost, especially around mealtime. He likes to, come show the dogs that he's boss still. And that dynamic works in our household. So controlled interactions work. It can be a little frustrating at times because you'll have setbacks. It won't always just go, okay, now we're just progressing forward and forward. Sometimes you will have a negative interaction, and then you have to work forward from that again. But if you take your time and you're always providing that active supervision, then you're likely to have success. So always have your dog on leash and allow your cat to move freely. And then you just start by having them in the same room as each other. You reward your dog for that calm behavior with praise or treats. And then if there's any lunging or an attempt to chase the cat, or the dog's on high alert, then you just remove the dog and then you try again another time. And with continued interactions, you'll hope to see a bit of an increase in comfort from both of your pets. And as that occurs, then you can reduce the amount of space you have between them, and that amount of space that you need for calmly coexisting. And every pet is going to have a different bubble, so you don't have to encourage them to ever go nose to nose if you don't need that to happen. My cat would do that of his own volition, but you don't need to encourage that by any means. Lots of cats aren't going to want a dog to be that close, and certainly lots of dogs might not want to be that close to a cat either. So don't worry about getting them nose to nose. It's just more about the fact that you could be within the same room, or you could be on one couch and they could be on the chair or whatever. It's just more so that they can go by each other without any negative occurrences. The members inside the Pawdoption Guide membership experience actually have access to a how-to dog to cat intro video presentation, as well as biweekly Q&A assistance with any of these pre or post-adoption concerns. So that's a huge benefit, that when you're in the membership, you have this ability to chat with me, your Pawdoption Guide, just about any of those concerning interactions, or, things aren't going so well, we've had a bit of a setback, or, sometimes people just need to be able to explain what the interactions are looking like. And I've had this with one of my clients who had quite a lengthy introduction between their new dog and their cat. And, we just, at times, they were really concerned for their pet's safety, and specifically their cat. And so we would talk those out. Well, what does it look like? Okay, who's doing this first, and and what exactly are they doing, and from what stance, and when does this occur? And sometimes when you can nail down those scenarios, and who's the aggressor here, and that it can sometimes just help make things clearer and help you sort out, okay, this is the new thing we need to do in order to encourage safety here, or to ensure that this pet's not being bossed around when they don't deserve it, and all that. So it's not always the dog causing the issues. Sometimes it's the cat. And there are things we can do for cats. We talked a bit about praising the dogs for calm behavior and that. But with cats, we can reward them as well. And we can also make sure that there is some negative feedback when they're doing things that aren't right, or make sure we set up scenarios so that they're not allowed to bully your other pet, because that can certainly happen too. So if you need help integrating your dog into your home and or with any other pets, you'll definitely want to check out my membership at www.pawdoptionguide.com/PGME. That's Pawdoption Guide Membership Experience. So those are the 3 tips I have for you to better introduction between dogs and cats. It's making sure you have that conducive environment to be able to do that. Not everyone has a setup like that or is prepared to make those sacrifices in their household in terms of having certain animals sectioned off. So know that is really crucial to having success here. And then, number 2 is taking it slow. You're going to want to rush it. You just want to fast forward to the good part. I get it, but you do need to take it slow. And the slower you take it, the more likely you're going to have success in the long term. So if you really want it to work, please just take it slow. Do not let them sort it out themselves. That does not work for the most part. Number 3, provide controlled interactions. So these are supervised interactions where you're ensuring that we're not allowed to have a major event occur, so that there's safety for both pets in this situation. So always have those guided interactions and have many of them, right? Once a day or twice a day based on how much anxiety it provokes in your pets. And then, hopefully it's one of those things that only takes a month. Sometimes it could take, days, could take weeks. For us, it took almost 3 months. It felt like 3 months. Maybe it was 1 month, but it felt like 3 months. So, I did it the right way, and we have long-term success. My cat loves to cuddle with my dogs to this day and is totally happy to just join us all on the couch. So there's no distance needed there. And again, that won't be everyone, but, if you take your time and do it the right way with these 3 tips, you're really likely to find success. So, and if you're not finding success, reach out to me. Maybe we can talk about you joining the membership so that you can get some more advice from me directly on what's going down between your dog and your cat or your dog and your other dog. If this episode gave you some helpful tips, please share. Just snap a screenshot of it on your podcast app and post it on your Instagram or Facebook story and tag me at Pawdoption Guide. I love to hear which episodes you like most, and you can guarantee next week, next Thursday, there'll be another episode. And otherwise, don't forget to get in touch with me on social at Pawdoption Guide via Instagram or my Facebook page. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you later.